The night was cold, and the rain did not stop for a single moment. It fell heavily on the tall gates of a luxury mansion, a place that once shined with celebrations, rich parties, and loud laughter. But today, everything looked dark. The lights were off, the yard was empty, and the silence around the mansion felt heavy, almost painful. In front of the gate stood a young woman named Lena, a maid who once worked inside this very house. Her clothes were wet, her hair stuck to her face, and her eyes were red from crying. She was holding a small white wedding dress close to her chest, pressing it tightly as if it carried her whole life inside it. Lena did not move for a long time. She just stood under the rain, shaking softly, her tears mixing with the falling water. Anyone who saw her at that moment would wonder why a simple maid was holding a wedding dress in front of a billionaire's mansion. Why was she crying like a person who had lost everything? Why did she come here at night, when no one even knew she was returning? The scene looked mysterious, painful, and full of secrets. The narrator's voice slowly rose, soft but powerful, as if carrying a truth hidden for months. She never imagined that the man who once laughed at her would one day kneel in front of her. And with those words, the audience would begin to question everything. What happened to her? Why was she treated badly? How did the same man who laughed at her end up kneeling? What story lies behind that small wedding dress she is holding? Lena looked at the mansion and took a deep, shaking breath. Her fingers touched the soft fabric of the dress, a dress that once belonged to someone else, or maybe was meant to belong to her, but never did. The memories were heavy, and she could feel them pushing into her heart. She closed her eyes, and the rain continued to fall, washing the dust and pain from her face, but not from her soul. Just a few months ago, things were completely different. Back then, Lena was a quiet maid who lived in the servant quarters behind the mansion. She was not rich, she was not educated, but she was kind, hardworking, and always respectful. She did her work without complaint, cleaned the rooms, served the guests, and took care of everything with a silent smile. But inside the mansion lived a man who never noticed her kindness, Amir, an Arab millionaire with a proud heart and sharp tongue. He was known for his wealth, his fast cars, his big business, and his loud laughter. But he was also known for something else, his arrogance. Amir believed he was above everyone, especially his staff. To him, Lena was just another maid, someone invisible, someone who didn't matter. He never cared about her feelings or her struggles. He only cared about his image, his status, and the people who praised him. And one evening, during a large party filled with expensive wine, loud music, and shining dresses, this arrogance crossed a line that Lena would never forget. That night, Lena had been serving drinks in the main hall. The guests were laughing loudly, dressed in luxury clothes that sparkled under the lights. Lena wore a simple uniform, her hands slightly shaking as she tried to avoid bumping into anyone. Suddenly, she heard laughter from behind her, Amir and his friends. They were talking loudly, pointing at different people, judging their clothes, commenting on their looks. Then, suddenly, their eyes fell on Lena. One of Amir's friends whispered something to him. Amir smirked, then raised his voice so the whole group could hear. "Look at her," he said. "So small, so skinny. She looks like she can't even carry a tray properly." The group laughed. Lena lowered her eyes, pretending she didn't hear. Then Amir's friend pointed toward a beautiful white wedding dress displayed near the stage. "You know what?" he said with a cruel smile. "She could never wear that dress. It's too beautiful for her." The men laughed again, louder this time. And then Amir, enjoying the attention, said the words that shattered Lena's heart. "If you can fit in that dress, I will marry you." Everyone burst into laughter, everyone except Lena, who stood frozen, the tray shaking in her hands. Her cheeks burned with shame. Her heart felt like it was breaking. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the floor to open and swallow her whole. But she did not cry, not in front of them. She simply placed the tray down and walked away slowly, holding her breath so no one would hear her pain. That was the night she left the mansion silently, without looking back. And now, months later, she stood again in front of the same gate, different, stronger, but carrying a wedding dress in her hands like a ghost from her past. She wiped her tears, lifted her head, and stared at the mansion with eyes that no longer held fear, only courage. Because tonight, everything was going to change. The rain slowly began to calm, but Lena stayed in front of the mansion for a moment longer, breathing deeply as she tried to gather strength. She looked at the wedding dress in her hands one last time before taking a step back. She wasn't ready to enter yet. Too many memories lived inside those walls, some painful, some heavy, and some that she had tried to forget. But her journey to this moment had not been easy. It was a long road filled with struggle, hard work, and quiet tears that no one saw. When she left the mansion months ago, Lena had nowhere to go. She walked through the streets with only a small bag and the same clothes she wore every day. She found a small room to rent in a poor neighborhood, tiny, cold, and without much furniture. But it was her first place of independence. She cleaned it slowly, set her things carefully, and told herself, "This is the start. My new life begins here." The first few days were difficult. She woke up before sunrise and went out to look for work. She cleaned houses, washed clothes for people, cooked meals for families who needed help. She did everything she could find. She worked from morning until night, often coming home with aching feet and trembling hands. But she never complained. She was determined to build a better life, even if it meant suffering today for peace tomorrow. When she got money from her first week of work, she didn't spend it on food or clothes. She bought one thing, a sewing needle and a small box of thread. She had always wanted to learn how to sew, how to make dresses, how to turn fabric into something beautiful. But life never gave her the chance. Now she was ready to give herself that chance. Every night, after long hours of work, she sat in her room with a lamp beside her and practiced stitching old pieces of cloth. At first, her fingers were slow. The stitches were uneven. The designs didn't match. She made mistakes again and again. But she didn't stop. She kept trying, kept learning, kept improving. One day, she saw a small sign near the marketplace that said, "Tailoring classes for beginners." She stood in front of the sign for a long time, wondering if she should join. It cost money, and she didn't have much. But something inside her whispered, "Take the step. Change your life." So she did. The classes were simple, but Lena learned quickly. Her hands grew steadier, her confidence grew stronger, and she began to understand how fabric could be shaped, transformed, and given life. Her teacher, an old woman with gentle eyes, noticed Lena's dedication. "You have talent," she told her. "But more than talent, you have patience. Patience is rare. Don't waste it." Those words stayed with Lena. She worked day and night, balancing her jobs with her classes, slowly saving money. She started repairing clothes for people in her neighborhood. Soon, people began to say, "Go to Lena. She does good stitching." Little by little, she earned more. She bought more tools, better thread, and finally a second-hand sewing machine. With time, Lena began designing dresses. Simple ones at first. Then more elegant ones. She used colors that told stories, fabrics that spoke to the heart. Every dress she made carried a piece of her struggle and her dreams. People started to love her work. Her confidence grew even stronger. Meanwhile, far from her small sewing room, the mansion she once worked in was not the same anymore. Amir's life had begun falling apart. At first, it was small things. A business deal failing. An investor withdrawing. A trusted employee resigning. Then bigger problems came, project collapsing, losses increasing, partners stepping away. He tried to hide it behind his confidence, but inside, he felt fear growing. He began to think about the past. About the people he had hurt. About the way he treated his staff. And slowly, very slowly, he remembered Lena, the maid he mocked in front of his friends. He remembered her quiet eyes, her hard work, her silence. He remembered the hurt on her face that night. He pushed the memory away, but it kept returning like a shadow he couldn't escape. One afternoon, as he sat alone in his office, stressed and exhausted, he overheard two women talking at a cafe nearby. They were admiring a dress, complimenting the design, praising the talent behind it. Amir listened without interest, until one of them said a name he never expected to hear again. "This is from Lena Design Studio. She's new, but very talented." Amir froze. His heartbeat changed. He leaned closer to hear more, and the more he listened, the more shocked he became. The maid he once laughed at had become a designer. Was it really her? He sat still for a long moment, the weight of his past actions falling heavily on him. The image of Lena standing silently in the mansion returned to him, and guilt pressed into his chest like a stone. Without waiting, he got up and walked straight to the location the women mentioned. His steps were fast, almost desperate. And when he reached the street and saw the small sign above a tiny boutique that read Lena Design Studio, his breath caught. She had changed her life. She had risen. And he had fallen. Amir stood outside her boutique the same way she once stood outside his mansion, filled with regret and fear. And this was only the beginning. Amir stood outside Lena's boutique for a long time, unable to move. His expensive coat was untouched by rain, but his heart felt heavier than the sky above him. The sign Lena Design Studio looked small, almost fragile, yet it carried a power that shook him from the inside. He remembered the past clearly, his laughter, her silence, the dress, the humiliation, and now, this. A tiny shop with her name shining proudly. Something he never expected. He took a deep breath and finally walked toward the door, but just as his hand touched the handle, fear stopped him. What will I say to her? He wondered. How can I face someone I hurt so deeply? His fingers trembled. His throat tightened. For the first time in years, the confident millionaire felt weak. Inside the boutique, Lena was busy working. Her sewing machine hummed softly, the sound echoing gently in the warm, colorful room. Dresses hung on both sides, simple but beautiful designs, filled with creativity and soul. There were soft pink dresses for young girls, elegant gowns for brides, and lovely outfits for daily wear. Every dress showed the hours she spent practicing, the nights she stayed awake, the dreams she stitched together. She didn't expect anyone important to walk in that day. She didn't imagine her past would come knocking on her new life. She was simply working, focused, peaceful. Her hands moved smoothly, her eyes calm. She was no longer the shy maid who feared speaking. She was Lena, the designer, the independent woman, the fighter. Outside, Amir gathered courage and pushed the door open. A small bell chimed. Lena looked up, expecting a regular customer. For a moment, she froze. Her smile faded. Her heart paused. She slowly stood up, shocked at the man standing at her door. Amir. He looked different, tired, defeated, thinner. His eyes didn't hold arrogance anymore. Instead, they were filled with something Lena had never seen in him before, regret. The air grew heavy. Neither of them spoke for a few seconds. Then Amir took a small step forward and opened his mouth slowly. Lena, his voice cracked. It's really you. She didn't reply. She simply watched him, her face calm, unreadable. So many thoughts ran through her mind. Memories from the mansion, the humiliation, the night she cried alone in her small room, the hard work, the struggle, the rise. Now the same man who mocked her stood in front of her, looking almost lost. Amir cleared his throat, trying to find courage. I'm sorry, he said softly. I know I was cruel to you. I said things I should never have said. I hurt you. And I regret it. Deeply. Lena remained silent. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't smile. She just listened, her eyes steady and strong. Amir continued, his voice shaking. My life, it changed after you left. Everything started falling apart. My business, my relationships, my peace, everything. I kept thinking, why? And the only answer I found was this: maybe I am paying for how I treated people. Maybe I am paying for how I treated you. He lowered his head. You worked so hard. You never complained. And I made fun of you. I humiliated you in front of everyone. I was wrong. The silence stretched again, long and heavy. Lena finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. Why are you here, Amir? He looked into her eyes, almost pleading. To ask for forgiveness. To make things right. To tell you that I am not the same person anymore. Lena looked at him quietly. She saw honesty in his eyes, something she never expected. But she also felt the pain of the past rising inside her. She took a deep breath. Forgiveness is not easy, she said. Words don't erase memories. Amir nodded slowly. I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me today. Or ever. But I needed to say these words. I couldn't live with this guilt anymore. He stepped back, ready to leave. But before he turned, something caught his eye, a familiar dress displayed on the far side. It was the wedding dress. The same dress he once pointed at during that cruel joke. But now, it looked completely different. Lena had redesigned it, changed its shape, added beautiful details. It was elegant, stunning, and full of grace. It looked like a dream. Amir walked toward it slowly. This is the same dress, he whispered. Lena nodded. Yes. I kept it. Amir touched the fabric gently, his fingers shaking. You made it beautiful. She said nothing. He looked at her again, eyes soft and filled with emotion. Lena, if I could go back in time, I would take back everything I said. I would treat you with respect. I would. Lena raised her hand gently, stopping him. The past cannot be changed, she said quietly. Amir swallowed hard, his heart sinking. Then let me change the future, he whispered. Lena looked at him with calm eyes, but her expression revealed nothing. There was no answer yet. No forgiveness. Only silence. Amir slowly stepped back, tears gathering in his eyes. If you ever allow me, I want to make things right. He turned away, reached the door, and left quietly. Lena watched him go, her heart heavy with old memories and new questions. She looked down at the wedding dress, the one that once destroyed her confidence and now represented her victory. A storm had ended, but another was just beginning. That night, Lena could not sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed, holding a cup of warm tea, staring at the sewing machine that had changed her life. Amir's face kept appearing in her mind, his tired eyes, his quiet voice, his apology that sounded like it came from a place of real pain. She didn't know what she felt. It wasn't anger anymore, and it wasn't forgiveness either. It was something in between, a slow, heavy confusion that sat inside her chest. She remembered the night he insulted her, remembered how small and weak she felt. But she also remembered the woman she had become, the one who built herself from nothing, the one who stitched her dreams with her own hands. She was no longer the Lena who cried in silence. She was the Lena who could stand tall even in front of a man like Amir. Still, the past didn't disappear so easily. The next morning, Lena opened her boutique early. She tried to focus on her work, but her mind wandered back to Amir's words. Let me change the future. She didn't know if she trusted those words. People often said things when they were in pain, but did they truly change? She didn't know what to believe. Her thoughts were interrupted when the bell above the door rang softly. Lena looked up, expecting a customer, but her breath caught again. Amir stood at the entrance. He was holding flowers in his hands. Not expensive, not fancy, just simple white lilies, wrapped in brown paper. Flowers that looked humble, gentle, and full of quiet meaning. Lena didn't speak. She didn't ask him to come in. She just waited. Amir stepped forward slowly, as if afraid she might ask him to leave. These are for you, he said softly. Not to win your forgiveness, only to show respect. He placed the flowers gently on a nearby table. Lena looked at them without emotion, then at him. Why are you here again? Amir took a breath. Because yesterday, I saw the person you became, and it made me realize even more how wrong I was. I wanted to talk. Only if you allow. Lena hesitated for a moment, then nodded once. Talk. Amir looked around the boutique, his eyes full of admiration. You built this place with your own hands. You created something beautiful. Every dress here carries a story. Lena crossed her arms. My story did not include you. Not anymore. His shoulders fell slightly, but he didn't look away. I know. And maybe it never will again. But I want to be honest with you. He stepped closer, but kept enough distance to show respect. When I lost my money, my people, my peace, I understood something, he said quietly. I understood that I hurt many people. But the one I regret hurting the most is you. Lena felt a small sting in her heart, but she stayed strong. Why me? Because you were innocent, he whispered. You worked honestly. You respected everyone. And I saw your kindness as weakness. I laughed at you, not because you deserved it, but because I was a fool. Lena's eyes softened only a little. She didn't want to show any emotion, not yet. Amir continued, You changed your life, Lena. You became someone powerful. And I fell. Maybe this is karma. Maybe this is the universe teaching me a lesson. Lena looked down at her hands. Karma comes when it's time. Amir nodded. And my time came. Silence filled the room again. Heavy, meaningful silence. Then Lena walked to a corner and picked up the wedding dress he had once mocked her with. She held it carefully, the soft fabric shining under the light. This dress, she said, reminds me of the night you broke my confidence. Amir lowered his head in shame. But now, she continued, lifting it a little, it reminds me of the night I found myself again. Amir looked at her, his eyes soft. You made it more beautiful than before. Lena nodded. Pain makes things stronger, if we don't let it destroy us. Her voice was steady, but her heart was trembling. Slowly, Amir reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Lena's breath caught, not because she expected anything, but because she feared something. But it wasn't a ring. Inside the box was a small silver pendant in the shape of a needle and thread. Lena's eyes widened. "This," Amir said softly, "is not a proposal. Not a promise. Just a symbol. A way of saying, I respect your journey. I honor your struggle. And I admire your strength." Lena didn't take the box. She simply looked at it, then at him. "You can respect me," she said quietly, "but that doesn't erase what you did." "I know," he replied. "But I hope, in time, you can see that I am not the same man anymore." The silence returned, but this time, it felt different. Softer. Almost gentle. Finally, Lena spoke. "If you really respect me, then give me time. Don't force anything. Let me decide what your place in my story will be." Amir nodded slowly. "I will wait. Even if waiting means forever." He placed the small box on the table, next to the flowers, and turned to leave. When the door closed behind him, Lena sat down, her heart full of a storm she didn't understand. She looked at the wedding dress. She looked at the flowers. She looked at the silver pendant. And for the first time, she didn't feel anger. She felt fear. She felt hope. She felt something she didn't want to feel. Something beginning. Days passed after Amir left Lena's boutique with the flowers and the pendant. Lena continued her work as usual, sewing, designing, and serving her customers. But something had changed inside her. Every time she looked at the wedding dress, or the small silver pendant on the table, or the flowers that slowly wilted but still held their beauty, her heart beat a little faster. She didn't know if it was fear, hope, or something else entirely. She only knew that Amir's presence in her life had stirred something she had carefully locked away. One afternoon, a client entered her boutique, asking for a new dress for an upcoming wedding. Lena smiled politely, taking the measurements and selecting the fabric. As she worked, she heard the familiar sound of the bell over the door. Her hands froze for a moment. Slowly, she looked up. Amir was standing there again, holding nothing this time. No flowers, no pendant, just himself, with a look she had never seen before, completely honest, completely vulnerable. He stepped inside quietly. "Hello, Lena," he said softly. She didn't respond at first. She continued cutting the fabric carefully, pretending she wasn't aware of him. Amir walked closer, keeping his distance, yet closing the space between them slowly. "May I talk to you?" he asked, almost whispering. Lena looked at him, her expression calm. "If you have something real to say," she replied. Amir nodded. "I want to tell you the truth. All of it. No excuses, no lies." He paused, searching her eyes for a hint of softness. "I was cruel. I mocked you. I humiliated you in front of everyone. I thought I was powerful, but I was weak. Weak in character, weak in respect, weak in heart. And now, I see what I lost." Lena put down the scissors and looked at him fully for the first time that day. Her eyes were steady, strong, and demanding honesty. "And what do you want from me now?" she asked. "Forgiveness? Sympathy? Or, do you expect me to forget everything?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't expect anything. Nothing. I only want you to know that I am different now. That I see you. That I respect you. And, if you ever allow me, maybe I could earn a place in your life, not as a master, not as a wealthy man, but as someone who understands your worth." Lena looked at him silently, her mind racing through memories of pain, struggle, and finally triumph. She remembered the nights she cried alone in her tiny room. She remembered the endless days she spent learning, sewing, fighting to make a better life. She remembered the woman she had become. And now, here was the man who once laughed at her, kneeling, metaphorically, before her courage. She walked slowly to the corner of the boutique and picked up the wedding dress. Her fingers touched the fabric gently, and she held it in front of Amir. "Do you remember this dress?" she asked softly. He nodded, eyes wide, a mixture of fear and wonder on his face. "Yes. I mocked it. I mocked you." She looked at him, calm but firm. "Now you see what I did with it. I turned it into something beautiful. Something stronger than what it was. Just like me." Amir swallowed hard. "It's amazing. Just like you." Lena's lips curved slightly, almost a smile, but her eyes stayed serious. "You asked to earn a place in my life. First, you must understand this. Respect is earned, not demanded. Humility is learned, not taught. You cannot undo the past, but you can choose to walk a better path from now on. Amir nodded, tears quietly forming in his eyes. I understand. And I will wait. No matter how long it takes. Silence filled the boutique. Then, Lena walked toward him slowly, holding the wedding dress carefully. She handed it to him. I will allow you to witness my journey, but not control it. Do you understand? Amir took it carefully, holding it with reverence. I understand. I promise. For a moment, the two of them simply stood there. Two people changed by time, struggle, and lessons. The arrogant man of the past had fallen, humbled by his mistakes. The maid who had been humiliated had risen, strong, independent, and unstoppable. Their paths were forever linked, but in a new, honest way. Then, Lena looked out of the boutique window. The sky was brightening, soft sunlight breaking through the clouds. Raindrops still lingered on the streets, sparkling like tiny diamonds. She smiled slightly to herself. For the first time in months, she felt at peace. She had fought, she had endured, and she had won, not over Amir, but over the fear and pain that once controlled her life. Amir watched her quietly, silently promising to respect the space she had fought so hard to claim. He knew that whatever the future held, he had learned the greatest lesson of all. True respect, true admiration, and true love are never forced. They are earned through patience, humility, and honesty. And as Lena placed the wedding dress on the mannequin in the center of the boutique, Amir stepped back. He understood he could no longer dictate her life, nor claim her heart. He could only honor it. And in that moment, the past finally released its hold over both of them. Lena looked at him one last time, calm and strong. Now, go, she said softly. Your journey is yours. Mine is mine. Amir nodded. Slowly, he turned and left the boutique. The bell above the door rang softly as it closed. Lena stood in the middle of her shop, surrounded by her creations, her life, her victories. She took a deep breath, feeling the strength, the courage, and the freedom she had earned. Outside, the streets sparkled in the sunlight. Rain had stopped completely. The storm had passed. And Lena knew, finally, that no one, not even a powerful man, could ever break her again. She smiled to herself. And somewhere deep inside, she felt hope, a quiet hope for the future, filled with dreams she would continue to build with her own hands.